Hi guys, and happy Monday. So for this tutorial, we decided to do something super special for you guys. So I have my good friend Maddie here today to help me show you guys 10 tips on how to perfect your makeup for photos. Makeup for getting professional photos done is honestly an intimidating thing because you do want to go heavier on your makeup than you normally would. So we are going to give you 10 tips on things that you can do to help improve your makeup and to let you know what's going to be heavy and what's not going to be heavy in order to give your face a natural effect. Now, I will warn you, Maddie in person does look like she has a lot of makeup on. There's no way of avoiding that. But on the back of the camera, it doesn't pick up that amount of makeup. It picks it up in a very more lighter and natural way, and that's what we are going to be showing you guys today. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, and just keep on watching if you want to see the rest. So tip number one is probably the most important when it comes to perfecting your foundation. You always want to use a primer. Today we are actually going to be using something different than a primer. This is the Nivea Men's Sensitive Post Shave Balm. This is an awesome face primer and it only costs $6 at either your Target or drugstore. And the reason why it's such an awesome primer is because it has glycerin as its main ingredient, and glycerin is awesome for keeping your foundation to stick all day long. So tip number two is to always use a full coverage foundation. This is essential even if you have no blemishes or that you think you have pretty clear skin. It is always good to use a full coverage foundation because it gives you the Photoshop effect without actually using Photoshop. So today we are going to be using the Maybelline Matte Poreless Fit Me Foundation. This is an awesome drugstore foundation that I definitely recommend picking up if you are looking for a full coverage foundation. So it's also always good to use a matte foundation versus one that is more dewy or on the dewier side because you are going to be taking pictures, and if you have an oil issue, you're not going to want anything that is going to contribute to that oil. So I am layering this foundation on small layers at a time to give her more of a full coverage effect, and I am just buffing this into the skin, really taking the time, blending it out, making sure there's no streaks, and I'm also blending it down her neck so that way she doesn't have any discoloration between her neck and her face. So tip number three is to always go ahead and fill in your brows. Even if you have thicker brows or you don't fill in your brows on every day, it is always good to go in with either a pomade, a brow wiz, or even just a powder or an eyeshadow and to go in and fill in that shape. That way when you're taking pictures, your brows don't look lifeless and they're not blended into your foundation and skin. So for Maddie, I'm gonna actually just use powder on her because she normally doesn't fill in her eyebrows, so I don't wanna scare her using something heavier. So we're just gonna lightly use these two colors to fill in her brows and to give her a little bit more shape. So you can already see the difference just between a little bit of powder from this brow to this brow. This brow definitely looks just a little bit more fuller and has a little bit more shape to it, and this one is already kind of blended in from the foundation. So even just taking a little bit of powder can make a huge difference in your brows. So once you finish your brows, you always want to make sure that you set it just so none of the product gets smushed or smudged or your brows don't move throughout the whole photo shoot. So tip number four is to always conceal and highlight. You want to make sure that you're concealing any blemishes or dark circles that you may have, and also when you're concealing, you want to go ahead and highlight your face. So you're going to be highlighting your face under your eyes, on the bridge of your nose, your forehead, cupid's bow, and chin. That way your face looks brighter and more awake and more lifted. So first we're going to go ahead and conceal any blemishes that we may have. Also, if you have any redness on your face, you're going to want to go ahead and conceal that. So Maddie tends to have a little bit of redness just around her nose area, so we're going to make sure we pop a little bit of concealer right on there just to hide that redness. Then we're going to go ahead and take a beauty sponge. This is the Real Technique sponge, but you can use a beauty blender or any sponge that you like, and we're just going to go ahead and gently pat these in. You don't want to rub the concealer over your blemishes because that's not going to do anything. You just want to pat it and blend it into the skin. So once you go ahead and cover up any blemishes or red spots that you might have, we're going to go ahead and highlight. So what we're going to do is take a little bit of concealer. You can use any type of concealer that you want. When choosing your concealer to highlight, you do want to go 2 to 3 shades lighter than your actual skin tone, just so it actually highlights your face and you're not just putting concealer over your foundation and it's not doing anything for you. First, we're going to conceal under her eyes. So we're going to bring the concealer all the way down the bridge of her nose, from her eye to the bridge of her nose, and we're actually going to bring it out, and then we're going to fill in that shape. And you can go as high out as you want, depending on how highlighted and how lifted you want your cheekbones to look. We're gonna do this on both sides. So then once you've concealed the under eyes, you're gonna go ahead and put just a little bit on the bridge of the nose, as well as the forehead. I tend to make like a little leaf looking thing. Bow, and then chin. And then you're gonna go back in with that sponge or beauty blender and blend everything out. Go ahead and look up. So when blending out the eyes, I always like to take the flat side of my Real Technique sponge and bring it up on the eye. This acts as a primer for your eyeshadow, so this works perfectly. So I'm just bringing the excess concealer all the way up onto her eyelids and then just blending everything out. So another really important thing to remember when you are using concealer is that you always want to go back in and set that concealer. This prevents any creasing or the concealer from slipping and sliding throughout the day. So you can use anything from a lighter face powder, or I recommend any type of banana color powder because this gives nice highlight underneath the eyes. So that's what I'll be using. This is from the Kat Von D Shade Light palette. Anastasia has one. There's a ton in the drugstore. Find any banana powder that you like and we're gonna go ahead and use that. So I'm also gonna bring this up on her lids because we did put concealer on her lids, and sometimes when you open your eyes you can get kind of like a little concealer line, so we're gonna go ahead and set that so that doesn't crease. And then I always like to just take a little bit of that banana powder and then just brush it on the nose and all the other places we use concealer, just in case. So this step is totally optional, but I like to go in with even a lighter color. This is like a matte cream color, and this is a great tip, especially if you are fairer in skin tone, because it really highlights your eyes and makes them pop even more and make them bright and lifted. So we're just applying this right under the eyes. And you can already see the difference from this side to this side. I mean, don't get me wrong, this eye is definitely highlighted and lifted, but using this little bit of a lighter color, especially because Maddie is fair, it makes the eyes look so much more brighter and awake and lifted. So right now our face is looking awesome. Maddie is definitely all concealed, all foundationed up, and her skin is looking flawless and matte, which is definitely what we need for taking photos. So tip number 5 that we have for you is when you're going in to choose your eyeshadow, definitely choose shadows that are more on the neutral side, just because these photos are something that you're going to be using probably for a long span of time, whether they be your wedding photos, senior photos, engagement photos, whatever they may be. You're going to have these pictures for a long time. So it's probably not the best idea to choose a bright color like blue or purple or green, just because it's not going to complement the photos very well. So when going in to choose colors, make sure that you're always choosing something a little on the darker side than you normally would and keeping it in that natural palette. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna go ahead and do is go in with a transition color. If you guys watch any of my makeup tutorials, you already know what a transition color is, but for those of you who don't, a transition color is just a light color that you can put in your crease, and you're gonna bring it up more towards your brow, and this just helps blend the shadows in nicer and gives you less lines. So we are going to be going in with Peach Smoothie by Makeup Geek, and this is honestly one of my favorite transition shades for anyone that is fairer in skin tone. So next we're going to be going in with just a little bit of a darker transition color just to give it a little bit more depth. I'm going in with Creme Brulee by Makeup Geek. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just kind of dusting this along her crease, and you don't have to be too precise with this because, like I said, it is a lighter color transition shade, so this is just going to help kind of blend in the darker shades easier. So now is when we're going to be going in with some darker colors. First we are going to go in with MAC Corduroy. This is just like a matte classic brown. We're just going to apply this to her crease just to give her even more depth than before. So when doing this, you want to start slow and start with small amounts. So just start on the outer corner and then slowly sweeping it into the crease. It's always better to start with a little bit of product and build it up than to go in with a bunch of product at once and then having it not look the way that you want it to. So now we are going to be going in with our main crease color. This is a gorgeous color by MAC, and it is called Bronze. It is a beautiful, just like almost mulch brown looking bronze shimmery color, and it is honestly gorgeous and perfect for any type of photos that you're looking to do because it reflects light beautifully. So we're gonna do the same thing that we did with Corduroy. Start with a small amount and start it on the outside of her eye and then slowly working it into the crease. We wanna keep it almost like in a V shape, so we're gonna take it almost on the outer corner of her eye just like that, if you see what I'm doing with my brush. Now, if you have smaller eyes like Maddie does, what is one thing that you don't want to do is bring this color all the way into the tear duct, because that's going to make your eyes appear smaller. So it's always good to concentrate most of the product on the outer V and then just slowly dusting a little bit of product in this way, so that way it does give her the effect of a deeper crease, but it's not too overwhelming on her little eyes. So now we're going to go ahead and do our lid color. You can choose any lid color that you like. I definitely recommend going on the lighter side, and you can either choose between matte or shimmery, but for today we are going to use a shimmery, kind of pale pinky color. This is Sin by Urban Decay. This is a very popular color. It is also in the Naked One palette. So I'm just going to apply this color on her lid, concentrating it in the middle. This is also another really good tip if you have small eyes like Maddie. Concentrating the color on the middle of the lid, right about here where my brush is touching, is a great technique for making your eyes look bigger and more awake. So I'm just slowly kind of patting this onto her lid, blending it through. Since this is a shimmery shadow and we were working with a few matte colors in here, you do see the shimmer kind of rise up into the matte, which I personally don't like that look. You could definitely leave it there if you want, but I'm gonna go ahead back in with just a clean blending brush that we were using before, if I could find it. And we're just gonna slowly dust that brush over just to get rid of some of that shimmer and to bring back some of that brown that we were using before. All right, so what we just did with Maddie is that we chose a beautiful shimmery, kind of light nude. So now we're gonna go back through with the MAC corduroy and we're gonna smoke out her lash line just a little bit. This is a really good tip to use because if you notice, we have a lot going on right here, but her under eye is very bare and sometimes that can look a little bit weird. So we are just lightly gonna take some of MAC corduroy, which is the color that we use on her lid, and we're gonna blend that through. You could choose any color. You could use the bronze that we use, you could use one of the Makeup Geek shadows that we use. Any color that you wanna do is fine. We're just gonna lightly dust that under her eye just to kind of smoke out her lash line just a little bit, so it gives more of a natural effect. So now this step is definitely optional, but I do recommend it if you are gonna be using false lashes. We are gonna go ahead and apply just a little bit of eyeliner to her. Now you could do just a straight thin black line just to help the lashes blend in, or you can do a wing, whatever that you are comfortable with. But I think today we are gonna do a small wing on Maddie. Okay, so we just added a very small and very subtle wing to this eye, just because it's gonna make the false eyelashes blend in a little bit better and look a little bit more natural. You definitely did not have to do this wing if you did not want to. You could just leave it as the thin black line and that would look just the same, but we decided to just bump it up a notch and give her a little bit of a wing. So tip number 6 for you guys is to always use false lashes. I know that they can be a little intimidating, but they truly do make the biggest difference when it comes to getting your photos taken by a professional photographer. They make your eyes look more awake, they make them look lifted, and they honestly just give more of a natural look than you think that they would. Because natural lashes on camera, as though they may look good, they don't really appear on camera. So even using thin, wispy lashes like these are by Ardell, just pop them onto your eyes and it'll honestly make the biggest difference. So when you're applying false lashes, they can be a little tricky. So I do recommend practicing with them before the day of your session. And if you're still having trouble with them, try looking up some YouTube tutorials or just have a friend or family member help you pop them on. Once you put on the glue, you want to at least wait 30 seconds for that glue to get tacky. If you're applying false lashes when the glue is still wet and not tacky, it's going to make a mess over your eyes. So just wait that 30 seconds. I promise it'll be worth it. All right, so this glue is pretty tacky now, so I'm going to go ahead and apply this on Maddie. So I'm going to tell Maddie to close her eyes, and I'm going to place these on her. When you're placing them, you want them to go as low as possible, and you want to press them on the eye to make sure that the glue sticks. So personally, I think that it is much easier to put eyelashes on someone else than it is putting them on yourself, but definitely practice with them because it is not impossible, I promise. It does get easier as you practice with them, but it is much easier for someone to put them on for you. So that one was already cut to Maddie's eye, but what you're doing if you're taking brand new lashes, before you put glue on them, you want to measure them to her eyes. So we see that there's a lot of excess over here, so I'm going to cut off from the lashes. You always want to cut off from the back end of the lashes. You never want to cut from the forward, just because the way lashes are designed, they kind of taper in as they go in, and you don't want to cut from the center to take away that tapered look. You want to cut from the end. Definitely start smaller and keep cutting versus just cutting off a lot at once, because once you cut lashes, you can't put them back together and they can be ruined. So since I cut that, we're just gonna measure it again, and that looks about good. And also when you're applying lashes, you wanna make sure that you don't put a ton of glue on the lashes, because if you put a ton of glue on the lashes, they're gonna get all over your eye, which can end up irritating your eye, and you can get glue in the corner of your eye. So definitely just use a little bit, let that dry and get tacky, and then place it on your eye. Perfect. And I'm gonna tell her to keep her eyes closed until the glue is dry. And you always want to make sure that when you are applying false lashes that you are putting mascara on your bottom lashes, because false lashes can be very big, or on your top eyelid, so you want to make sure that you're complementing that by putting some mascara on your bottom lashes. So tip number 7 that we have for you guys is to always either bronze or contour your face. This is critical when taking professional photos, because if we let Maddie go just the way that she is, her face looks very pale and very lifeless. So we want to bring some warmth to her, and we want to define her cheekbones a little bit. So even if you don't have prominent cheekbones, this is a great way to define them. So you can either choose to do a very harsh contour or a softer contour. Either way, you definitely want to make sure that you're adding bronzer to your face. When you are choosing a bronzer, make sure that you choose a matte bronzer, because shimmery bronzers can sometimes look a little bit muddy and dirty, and it's always better to go with a matte bronzer because it looks more natural and it looks like it's actually giving it a shadow versus that you just put makeup on your cheek. So we are going to give Maddie just a little bit of a structured bronzer. We are going to be using Too Faced Milk Chocolate Soleil bronzer for her, just because she is pale. We want to give her a light brown on a little bit of a warmer or ashier side. If you're paler or fair skin, you tend to want to go on the ashy side, but I do love this bronzer on pale skin. So I'm just going to be using a little bit of this, and then I'm going to be mixing in an ashier shade in just a second. So we are using the NARS Eda brush to apply this, and I am starting from the tip of her ear, and generally what you want to do is start from the tip of your ear and work towards the corner of your mouth. If you see where my brush is right here. Now you don't want to go all the way to the mouth, because that will make you look like a clown, but you want to start from the corner of the ear and just slowly bring that line down. Now with contouring and bronzers, in person when you're doing these, they're going to look very dramatic, but once you get on camera, it is not going to look that dramatic. So you do want to go heavier than you normally would. You also want to make sure that when you're bronzing, you bronze the rest of your face as well. So we are bringing this up along her temples, on the forehead, and you can even bring it down the neck a little bit. So this tone of bronzer actually looks really great on Maddie's fair skin. It is a warmer toned bronzer, but it still looks very good on pale skin. But if you wanted to go with an ashier shade, you can go ahead and pick one up. I'm going to use this color from the Shade Light palette, just a little bit on a fluffy brush, and then just blend that contour out. This is also giving it a little bit more depth and making it look a little bit darker. So tip number 8 that we have, you guys, is to always brighten up your blush. Blush, I feel like, is one of the most intimidating things when applying makeup to your face, because when you have a very bright cheek, it can almost make you look clownish. But on photos, they don't turn out that way. So you are going to want to go a little bit heavier on the blush than you normally would, and choose a color that is more colorful than like a matte color. For example, if I'm using this palette, I'm probably not going to choose something fair like one of these natural colors. I'm probably going to go for something just a little bit brighter to brighten up her face and to brighten up that blush, just to give her a little bit more color to her face. So I'm actually going to be using this bright peach color down here, and I know it looks really bright, but when we apply it on her skin and take some photos, it's not going to look that bright. So this step is totally optional, but we went ahead and highlighted Maddie's face. So I added a little bit of Becca Cosmetics Champagne Pop, which is one of my favorite highlighters of all time, to her cheekbones, a little bit on her nose, the bridge of her nose, just a touch on her forehead, and the Cupid's bow. I love doing this because this makes her face look so bright and awake, and Champagne Pop reflects this gorgeous color back on camera. So like I said, this step is optional, but if you are looking to highlight, this is how you would do it. You would do it on the cheekbones. If you wanted to, you could do it on the forehead and the nose and Cupid's bow, and it gives a beautiful effect. So tip number 9 is to always, always, always use a lip color. When choosing a lip color, make sure that if you want to stay on the neutral side, you're not going too neutral. So something like what I'm wearing today may be a little bit too neutral for photos. You definitely want something with a little bit more color. So today, Maddie is going to be using the NYX Whipped Caviar. This is their matte lipstick, and this is a beautiful color. I own it to myself, and it is a gorgeous, it is very neutral, but it gives a very warm and pinkish effect to the lips, which is awesome. I wouldn't recommend doing something bold, like a red lipstick or a dark purple lipstick. If you wanted to, bring a neutral color with you. That way you can put on that lipstick, wipe it off, and then put on the neutral for the rest of your photo shoot. So make sure that whatever lip color you choose to use, you bring along with you on your photo shoot, because lipstick can wear off and lipstick can get dry and cracked. So make sure that you are bringing a chapstick, a lipstick, and a gloss. Those are the 3 things that I recommend. I always personally have them in my camera bag. If a client doesn't have them, that way we can touch up for her. And our last tip for you guys is to avoid any type of setting powder. Setting powders are something that are a hit or a miss, and honestly, you can't tell the difference between them until you buy them and test them out. A setting powder like this is the Makeup Forever Professional. This is just their HD high definition powder. This gives a white flashback with any type of flash photography, and it also may appear translucent, but when the sun is hitting your face, you can see the whitish hints to it. So all in all, I just recommend that you don't use a setting powder, just to avoid that all in all, because I've had so many times where I've used a setting powder and then gone out and even taken a picture with my iPhone and the flash went off and I just looked white. My whole face was just white and ghostly, and you can even see the patches of powder that were on my face. So instead, I recommend using a setting spray. You can use any kind of setting spray that you want, but the one that I love is the Urban Decay All Nighter makeup spray, and that is what I'm going to be applying on Maddie. So I'm just going to spray this all over her face. Go ahead and close your eyes. And she's going to let that dry, and that will keep her makeup lasting longer. So between the makeup setting spray and then the primer that we used before, this is going to be an awesome combination for having your foundation and the rest of your makeup lasting all day and all night long. So that is it for you guys. I hope you enjoyed these 10 tips, and I hope that you find them helpful for your next photo shoot, or even if you're a photographer and you'd like to give your clients some tips on how to do their makeup for their shoots. So with that being said, Maddie and I are going to go head out now and take some pictures, and I will include those in the after just so you can see how her makeup looks now in person versus how it looks in photos. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoy this, and I will see you next Monday. Bye guys.